Good day, everyone. Today we would like to present our topic of discussion about language maintenance and shift. In this presentation, we will talk about language shift, language death, language loss, language maintenance, and language revival. The first one is language shift. Language shift is language transfer or language replacement whereby a speech community of a language shift to speaking another language. As Hoffman said, when a community does not maintain its language but gradually adopts another one, then we talk about language shift. There are three different communities in language shift. The first one is migrant minorities, the second one is non-migrant communities, and the last one is migrant majorities. Migrant minorities is a group of minority who adapts the majority language use. For example, in countries like English, Austria, New Zealand, and the USA, the school is the first domain in which children of migrants' family meets English. They may have watched English TV programs and they may have heard English used in shop before starting school, but at school, they are expected to interact in English. They have to use English because it is the only means of communication with the teacher and other children. For many children of the immigrants, English soon becomes the language for talking to other children, including the brothers, sisters, and other family members. Second one is non-migrant communities. Language shift causes by other factors. Language shift is not always the result of migration, but political, economic, and social changes can occur within community, and this may result in linguistic changes. And then the third one is migrant majorities. The domain language is associated with status, prestige, and social success. When language shift occurs, it always shifts towards the language of the domain powerful group. A domain group has no incentive to adopt the language of minority. The domain language is associated with status, prestige, and social success. So when a language dies gradually, as opposed to all its speakers being wiped out by a massacre or epidemic, and the function of the language are taken over in one domain after another by another. The next is factors contributing to language shift. Social and economic factors. The dominant language associated is the obvious economic reason for learning another language, such as obtaining work is the most obvious economic reason for learning another language. For instance, people learn English in order to get good jobs. This results in bilingualism. High, the high demand from industry for employee with fluent English has successfully encouraged job seeker to equip themselves with English. In fact, being competent in English leads to well-paid jobs. And as in, no action to maintain the ethnic language is the social factor. Language shift occurs when the community sees no reason to take active steps to maintain their ethnic language. When a community of speakers moving to a region or country whose language is different from theirs, there is a tendency to shift the new language. And then the next is the political factor. In a multilingual country, the authority usually chooses one language as the lingua franca to unify various kinds of ethnic groups. Consequently, the number of ethnic language speakers decreases. And then the demographic factors. Language shifts is faster in urban areas than rural. The size of the group is sometimes a critical factor. Intermarriage between groups can accelerate language shift. And the last is attitude and values. Language shift is lower among communities where the minority language is highly valued. Therefore, when the language is seen as an important symbol of ethnic identity, it's generally maintained longer and vice versa.
So the next is language death and language loss. There are two quotes that can explain about the language death and language loss. The first one is from Crystal. A language dies when nobody speaks it anymore. And the second from Holmes. When all the people who speak language die, the language dies with them. Here's some explanation about language death and language loss. So, language death occurs when a language loses its last native speaker. By extension, language extinction is when the language is no longer known, including by second language speakers. There's language loss. Language loss normally occurs in second generation when the speakers more often use second language than mother tongue. There are many languages die until now. One of them is Sanskrit language. Sanskrit language is the ancient language of Hinduism and is used in many religions. These include Jainism, Buddhism, and Sikhism. Sanskrit serves as the main language of a lot of ancient poetry, drama, and religious texts. So how this language dies? This liturgical language of Hinduism is so sacred that lower castes, more than 75% of modern Hindus, weren't even allowed to listen to it being recited. Basically, most of the users of the language has a high position in society, which is very rare. So that's why the language are not common used in society. Moving on to the example of language loss. There is Annie, a 20 years old girl. She is a young speaker of Gerbil, an Australian Aboriginal language. She also speaks English, which she learned at school. There is no written Gerbil material for her to read, and there are fewer contexts in which she can appropriately hear and speak the language. So she is steadily become less proficiency in it. She can understand the gerbil she hears used by older people in her community, and she uses it to speak with her grandmother. But her grandmother is sketching about her ability gerbil, saying Annie doesn't speak the language properly. In other words, Annie is experiencing language loss. She uses English for most purposes. Her vocabulary in gerbil shrunk little by little. That causes the language slowly disappear from any generation. Language maintenance. Language maintenance is the degree to which an individual or groups continues to use their language, particularly in bilingual or multilingual area or among immigrant groups.
How can a minority language be maintained? A language can be maintained and preserved when it's highly valued as an important symbol of ethnic identity for the minority group. If families from a minority group live near each other and see each other frequently, their interactions will help to maintain the language. For immigrant individuals from a minority group, the degree and frequency of contact with the homeland can contribute to language maintenance. Intermarriage within the same minority group is also helpful to maintain the native language. And then ensuring that the minority group language is used at formal settings such as schools or worship places will increase language maintenance. An extended family, an extended normal family in which parents, children, grandchildren live together and use the same minority language can help to maintain it. And the last, institutional support from domains such as education, law, administration, religion, and the media can provide opportunities of maintaining a minority group language. The minority group which can mobilize these institutions to support language maintenance has some chance of succeeding. When the government of a country is committed to maintaining or reviving a language, it is possible to legislate for its use in all these domains. The next material is language revival. Language revival is when people try to make a language that is not spoken or is spoken very little become spoken more often again. Thus, language revival wants to save a language that is dead or endangered. Because sometimes a community becomes aware that it is language is in danger and of disappearing and takes deliberate steps to revitalize it. And the example is in 1840, 2/3 of the Welsh people spoke Welsh for their everyday communication with each other, but by 1980, only 20% of the population spoke Welsh. The invasion of Wales by English industrialists had in fact begun a process of language erosion. The mines and ironworks attracted English immigrants, and as a result, the Welsh language was overwhelmed by English language. The situation was then exacerbated by the fact that many Welsh-speaking miners left their Welsh villages during the Depression of the 1930s. So the number of Welsh speakers in Wales was being reduced by the effects of both immigration and outmigration. Therefore, the Welsh people began a revival process of Welsh language by using a Welsh language TV channel and establishing successful bilingual education programs that used Welsh as medium of instruction at schools. It gave the example that with institutional support, it can contribute to language maintenance and even language revival.
That's all from us. We hope that this video gave a better understanding about language maintenance and safety. And thank you for watching.